following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
Welcome back to the Big Yak. It's your boy Nico, Sal, and Benny. Back at it again with another episode this week. Today we have a huge guest for me. Great guy. You might have heard his voice on WGR. You might have seen him on the sideline of Bills games. You might have seen him on an appearance on the Pat McAfee Show. So beat reporter, sideline reporter, podcast host, media personality, Buffalo legend, Sal Capaccio. How you doing today, Sal?
Great intro. I don't think I'd say legend, go that far, but somebody who likes to, who loves his job for sure in Buffalo and loves to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in. So one of the other things too is Sal is a fellow Syracuse grad. Remind me what class?
95.
95.
I'm old.
Right. So new house grad, just like myself. I'm class of 2021. So such a great time having another Syracuse grad on. And this interview for me is very special on multiple occasions. When I first started, getting into media, Sal, honestly, being completely candid, you were an influence and a role model of mine. So it's kind of a really cool full circle moment for me to have you on and talk football with you. So once again,
cool.
Thanks for coming on.
That. Yeah, thanks. I hear that from some people sometime, and my first reaction is, damn, I'm old. But my second one is, for me, I think back to a lot of the people who were my influences and people who I wanted to be like and growing up, and a lot of names that you might recognize or might not, like, even John Murphy, who I work with obviously for many years, right? And watching Murph and listening, and of course, Rick Jenneret. And then there was Rick Azar and, Ed Kilgore, who I've gotten to know later on when I came back to Buffalo, people in Buffalo media, Van Miller, obviously, but it's pretty cool now to be in these chairs and positions that a lot of them held. And when I hear people like you say that, I think about myself as well in the reverse role. And, it's pretty cool. So I'm just here to tell anybody that, hey, if that's what you want to be, you can be it. If that's what you want to do, you can do it.
That's awesome. That's a great just piece of info. Anyone that's listening in that wants to kind of pursue something like this, just do it. Just start doing and reaching out, and you never know who you end up talking to. So
that's right. Before
we get into Bills football, I want to talk a little bit about Syracuse football. As a fellow Syracuse grad, this is a big time to be a Syracuse grad, a Syracuse fan, a Syracuse football fan. Kyle McCord led the nation in passing yards.
Amazing.
I don't even know. Did McNabb do that at all during his career?
I don't believe so. No.
It's just so surreal to kind of be living in this moment where Syracuse football is back and in full swing. I mean, we only got McCord for the 1 year, but it was kind of just that jump start that this organization needed. So what do you think? Future's bright or what?
Yeah, listen, I just tweeted tonight that I can't wait till Fran Brown beats Bill Belichick next year in the Dome, because UNC comes to Syracuse, and literally we're doing this like within minutes after North Carolina announced it and made it official that Bill Belichick is now their new head coach, which is crazy. Yeah, listen, I really love what Fran Brown's doing, and they're on a great trajectory. John Wildhack, the athletic director, who I know pretty well, I give him a lot of credit. I think it was a totally out of the box hire. Fran Brown had never been a head coach and not even a coordinator, right? He was a recruiting coordinator, really. He had been a position coach, but college football's totally changed. All college sports are. It's about recruiting. It's about relationships. And, obviously it's about the money and NIL, but the Syracuse is a bit of a different approach than a lot of schools. Yes, they're going to pay, but it's not like, hey, we're going to pay you the most, so come here. I love what Fran Brown said, for example, about, guys opting out of the bowl. Like, hey, who's going to opt out? He said, we don't opt out around here. And he said, and if anybody wants to go to the portal, be a man about it. Come tell me why. Let's have a discussion. And then he said something like, I'm paraphrasing, if you don't do that, then I consider you a snake. You know what you do to a snake? You cut it off at the head so it doesn't, it doesn't permeate around. I mean, it's incredible what this guy is doing and what he's all about. When he was hired, yeah, when he was hired, I talked to Deion Dawkins and Tyler Medikevich, who both were on the Bills, who he recruited at Temple, and Terrell Bernard, who he recruited at Baylor. So he has a lot of ties there with the Bills players, and all of them said the same thing. They said, he is just a real dude. He's always going to be super honest with you. But look at, as far as Kyle McCord, and Wildhack was up front on my radio show last Friday. I had him on about all this stuff, and he said, the reality is they'll go in the portal again, and they'll you'll have to get another quarterback through the portal. You're not bringing somebody in from high school. And this is the way the new college landscape is. So you look at the UNLV kid, the Liberty kid, I forgot their names, but I know that these are some of the top guys out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if one lands, in the Dome next year.
It's going to be awesome. And you already mentioned it. That was my next piece of notes about Bill Belichick. Yeah, that's breaking news. 3-year, $30 million deal.
Amazing.
It's funny to say it like that. It almost sounds like it's like a like a player contract. 3 years, $30 million. And here he goes. I mean, I want to ask you this. One, are you going to be at the Dome for that game? And two, what do you think his motivation was? Was it just for the love of the game to kind of just keep coaching, or what do you think kind of drew him to UNC?
We try to go to like one basketball game a year if we can. It's a bit of a drive, maybe a couple. And it's football. It's got to totally line up with the Bills schedule, right? For me. So it's tough sometimes. So plus I got a lot of events going on, throughout the season. So if we can get to a game, I can. Was unable to go to a game in the Dome this year, but who knows? Maybe next year, I'll be at that one. As far as Belichick, look, I think what happens is when you do something your whole life and that's what and that's what you love, then you just keep doing it. And I don't have any problem with that with anybody. And he's done it at the highest of levels. He is the most successful, coach in the history ever. Now, if you listen to my radio show and you follow me on X/Twitter, you know that I always maintain, although Bill Belichick is the most successful coach of all time, I don't think he's the greatest coach. I actually don't. He has that claim because of the record, or at least close to it now. To me, the greatest coach of the ones are the best, a little bit of a different meaning that, Belichick had Tom Brady for 20 years. And as soon as Brady left, he didn't win. Before Brady, he didn't win. I think for my money, young people can go look it up. Joe Gibbs to me is the greatest coach ever. Joe Gibbs went to 4 Super Bowls, won 3 of them with 3 different non-Hall of Fame quarterbacks, all in a 12-year period. I think that's incredible what he's done. So I'm not trying to diminish Belichick. I just think that a lot of times we talk about him being the greatest ever and things like that. So it's interesting. As far as why he did it, yeah, I think that it's a love of the game, and that's okay. I do think, however, Nico, what I'm going to say is I don't really think it's going to matter that much. Look, at the end of the day, he might have this great grand plan, 400 pages, going to get everybody to the NFL. You come play for me, you're going to play in the NFL. That's what he's doing. He's still going to have to sit in the living room with a mom and dad and the kid who's going to say, how much you paying me? I mean, that's the reality we're living in now.
Like you said,
and
it's
I don't think
college football.
It's why Nick Saban, his good buddy, is no longer coaching, really.
Yeah. It's a very good point. Very good point. So let's jump right into Bills football on that note. First and foremost, want to talk about the Rams game. Only makes sense to talk about that first. I mean, absolute thriller of a game. As a Bills fan, that was a tough loss to watch, but as a fan of the game, what a game to watch. It was a thriller, absolute shootout. Those are the games that always make the year-end highlight reel. You're going to see them. I mean, this game's always going to get brought up as one of those classics. So before we get into it, I wanted to talk about just the Bills Mafia influence that they have on away games. Now, I've been to only one away game in my life, and that was in Miami, and Bills fans kind of have a reputation for taking over that stadium. Now, you who were on the sideline, I just want to get your perspective as to, how loud was the Bills fan presence there, and did it make an actual difference in the game?
Well, I couldn't say it made a difference because the Bills lost, right? I mean, if they win the game, they could say, okay, maybe it was. However, I will tell you that when the Bills were mounting their comebacks, that's the one thing, like, this is true at every stadium when Bills Mafia is there. Like, oh my God, it's incredibly loud. They're a huge presence. But if the other team scores first and the Bills are kind of trailing, it's a little different, right? Take them out of the game a little bit. If the Bills score and they're up, like in Miami this year, week 2, oh my God, like it's just amazing from the start. Indy this year, first play for Indy on offense. Taron Johnson takes it back, pick 6. After that, it's like Bills Mafia is just, going crazy. Now, Indy did come back actually and at least tie the game, maybe take the lead, but whatever. In this game particularly, the Bills were down. They were not playing well. And it seemed like no matter what they did, LA had a response. I would say it was about overall 60-40 Rams, but on the Bills sideline behind their bench, it was about 80-20 Bills fans. It was incredible. And whenever there was a big play made, like right behind me, it was just insane. And the chants of MVP for Josh Allen were incredible right behind the bench. So yeah, I do think it matters in the regard of, even the Rams, like at some points they had to go to a silent count. I mean, you have to do that at home. That's not the first time I've seen that happen in teams, other stadiums. So, give Bills fans, Bills Mafia, of course, credit. I mean, they travel as well as any team in the National Football League, and that's going to continue because, you have generational, fans who their mom and dad were fans, but they moved somewhere else and they grew up somewhere else. So somebody grew up in Buffalo, but they moved to a warmer climate or whatever reason they left New York State, but that love and that passion for, their football team remains. And when they have a chance to go see them, they go wherever they can to do that.
That's awesome. That influence, you're right. And, I was in LA for a little bit, actually, thanks to Syracuse. Spent a semester in Los Angeles out there.
Nice.
And, I took a weekend trip down to San Diego one weekend and ended up watching that Bills-Miami game where Micah Hyde had the onside kick return for a touchdown.
Yes.
And
yes.
I was at the local, I think it's still called, the Pacific, the Bills bar right in San Diego. That was an unreal experience. And yeah, to your point, I mean, that Bills fan presence is everywhere.
Well, here, look, I'm actually wearing a from California, Bills backers.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Yeah. Look at that. What are the odds of that? There it is.
We just picked it up in Monterey because we went to California. My wife and my son and I, during the Bills bye week, I took a vacation because that's really the only week off I have during the season.
Yeah.
So noticed that the Sabres were playing in San Jose. So I said, hey, you know what? Let's go to California, go to San Jose. So before going out there, I got in touch with the Bills backers out that area. And Aaron from the Bills backers in Monterey, he said, hey, come on by. We'll hook up you with a sweatshirt, a hoodie. And, we met out. I mean, that's what it's about. Life's about connections and connecting with people and, just kind of being a community like that all around the world. And that's what we did. So I got in touch with them and we met up before the game at a place. And there was a bunch of Bills backers from San Jose and San Francisco and Monterey. And we had a good time and got the hoodie.
That's amazing. Let's talk about the game itself. Starting out with the not so pretty part, the defense. So this defense hadn't allowed a 30-point output yet this season. Their highest was week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals, 28 points. They let up 44 from a Los Angeles Rams team that only scored 30 points once this year. Do you think this was more of an any given Sunday scenario, or do you think it was just a bad day on defense, or was it more of a combination between Los Angeles getting healthier, acting as more of an underrated offense, paired with Buffalo's defense finally being exposed? Kind of, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I don't like the word exposed. I don't think anything was exposed by the Bills defense. I do think that there's some game planning things that, they'll have to go back and look and say, maybe that's just not the best way to approach certain things. After being down there today at One Bills Drive and practice and talking with Coach McDermott and talking with players, I will tell you that I think that they really believe they did not bring their best focus, energy, and, play obviously on Sunday. And I think they really feel that, they could have been much better all the way through the week last week, including on Sunday, obviously. You're not going to face many receivers duo as good as Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And they made some incredible plays and they made some incredible catches. I thought that was a tough matchup. The Bills corners didn't play particularly well. They've been so much better this year, obviously. Any given Sunday is always true, right? That could happen to any team. Look at, the Carolina Panthers just missed beating the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And then the Philadelphia Eagles. The Raiders beat the Ravens this year. Things like that can happen. It's the National Football League. It's high-level sports. The other team gets paid too. They have professional coaches, professional players. And you're talking about a team that not too long ago won a Super Bowl with this head coach and this quarterback and that wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, and a lot of the players. So, yeah, I think that's partly it. But I just think also the Bills did a bad day at the office, and that was – I think a lot of it was, just leading up that they didn't play their best football. I think that their own preparation by their own admission probably wasn't up to their standard for whatever reason that is. I don't think people got lazy or anything like that. I just think that sometimes you have those ebbs and flows throughout the season. They had just come off winning the division on Sunday Night Football and, in front of a national television audience. I don't want to believe the Bills usually have letdowns. I don't like that because I think Sean McDermott, the hallmark of his tenure has been the consistency of the program. But I think kind of that's what happened a little bit here. You won that big game against the Niners. You win the division. You go on the road 2,000, 3,000 miles away, and you're facing a team that's backs against the wall. Let's remember the Rams had to win. Like they're in a position where they have to win,
yep.
Right? I mean, and the Bills, they don't. They're in, right? So I do think you can let your guard down a little bit.
That's good insight. Going into this week with the Lions, talking about the Bills defense, they have a two-headed monster to face in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Doing a little bit of research, following up with some of the stats from Cover 1. The last time the Bills faced the Lions, Buffalo utilized 3 linebackers 12% of the time. Now, with Matt Milano being back, Dorian Williams had 0 snaps last week. Do you think that this week we're going to see something a little bit different? Do you think that Matt Milano being back is really kind of completely eat into Dorian Williams' snap share? I thought he did well, especially against the run. And on times this season, I mean, he still is the leading tackler on the team. And then the injuries in the secondary. How do you think that this defense will stand up against the Lions?
Well, first on Milano and Williams. Look, I mean, by nature of the position he plays in this defense, he's going to lead the team in tackles pretty much. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. And one of your linebackers is going to do that, in the Buffalo Bills. So I think that stat gets a little bit, it's great for Dorian, no doubt about it. But I do think, looking at that, that's not the reason why he should be necessarily playing over Matt Milano. And it's a good debate to have, but obviously the Bills feel, hey, this is Matt Milano's position and he's the starter. And look, they have the object's to have Matt Milano playing the best he can be playing in the playoffs. And the best way I think they feel they can do that is to play him now as much as possible to ramp him up into the playoffs. So I think that snap share, that's 2 weeks in a row now that Dorian Williams didn't play a snap. And the first week and the second week, Milano just came off on dime situations. I would be surprised if we see a lot more, if we see the same type of 3 linebacker sets we saw a couple of years ago with those stats cover 1 shared. And the biggest reason for me is the Lions didn't have Matt Laporta then. And the Lions didn't have the kind of receivers they have now to go along with. And they had good receivers. I mean, St. Brown was there. He's not the player now. Then he's now, right? I mean, I think that just they're so well balanced and spread out. You have to remember, if you run 3 linebackers, you're taking Taron Johnson off the field essentially. I mean, that's really the only way to do it. So I don't know, and I don't think you want Taron Johnson to come off the field. He's their best defensive player primarily. Now, in certain situations, when it's a key 3rd and 1, they bring in a heavier package. I think that's when you go to a 3 linebacker set. So I do think there are certain situations where you have to do that, but I don't know. I'd be surprised. Now, the thing that concerns me is Rasul Douglas's knee. He didn't practice on Wednesday. And if Rasul Douglas doesn't play, what do you do there? Do you put Jamarcus Ingram in, or is Kyer Elam, who hasn't even been active, as he's been a healthy scratch? I think it's Jamarcus Ingram. My co-host on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo, Matt Bove, thinks they'd go Kyer Elam. I think it's very interesting how they would play that. And then, because let's remember, Jamarcus Ingram also can be a dime defender as well if you want to put Cam Lewis at safety, because you might have to do that because Taylor Rapp didn't practice on Wednesday. So there's some things they have to juggle here, but overall, this is going to come down to how the defensive line bounces back and plays, because I don't think they had a particularly great game, and I think that they need a bounce back effort against a very physical, very good Detroit Lions offense.
Awesome. Now going on to the offense, starting from the top with Josh Allen. It's not often when a player loses and their MVP odds go up. He was spectacular last week. Over 400 total yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, first player ever to do that. So I guess my question for you, and I don't know how much you can or can't answer on this, is on the inside, I mean, what are people saying? Is there really much noise from the outside within with the MVP talks, or are they all kind of locked in on Super Bowl or bust?
It's a good question. I'll tell you what I've observed, that I think that it's certainly known, right? It's certainly known inside the walls of One Bills Drive that Josh Allen has a really legitimate shot to win MVP. Nobody's going to put that above a Super Bowl. Nobody, not Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, any of his teammates. I mean, however, I think everybody in the organization would love for Josh to win the MVP. And I think that from things that I've heard from players throughout the year, we've kind of heard them say things alluding to that, which, like Deion Dawkins, for example, I remember one week him saying, and we want, Josh to get what he deserves, or something along those lines, right? Which to me is telling me that's my guy. And I'm trying to play. And for Deion's case, Deion might have might be all pro this year. I think he's playing to that level. And I think Deion wants to be an all pro, and he wants his all pro, play to translate to Josh Allen being an MVP. I think that's just something that they would share it, right? Everybody wants that. Why would the Bills, everybody would everybody One Bills Drive, everybody in Buffalo, but in the organization, they would love for people to pull up and go, oh, the MVP plays here, right here in our house, right? And I think that's just a cool thing. There's only been 2 MVPs in the history of the Buffalo Bills franchise, Thurman Thomas and O.J. Simpson. That's it. I mean, for the Bills to have the MVP, which I think he deserves it. And at this point, I think he's going to get it. Hopefully, he stays at the level he's staying, which is incredible, and, and can be right there. But I think that would be awesome. And I do think that people would love to see that for Josh.
As a follow-up to that, was it about Josh's play this year that makes it different from seasons past? I mean, this is a statistically down year, which is crazy to say given his stats right now. But why this year instead of other years?
So I think it's a great question, and what I think has happened is statistically down because of that. You're talking about yards and maybe touchdown passes, but the one statistic that's not down, it is down in numbers, but it's up, is interceptions, which is he's great at not turning the ball over. And I actually think that that's something that has been held against him too much in the past. Josh is so great, we know that. I think you kind of have to. That's the Josh Allen experience. I can't tell you how many times I've gone on radio shows around the country the last few years. Well, he just turns the ball over too much. And you have to tell him, but listen, you're going to get that if you want the greatness of him, right? If you want to get all those great things, you're going to live with some turnovers because the good far outweighs the bad. And the number of touchdowns and 50 touchdowns a couple years ago, whatever it was, like, oh my God, I can live with, 15 turnovers if that's going to be the case. So, but this year, you're not getting as much as the numbers in the high end, but you're not getting him turning the ball over. He's 5 interceptions, I think, right now. And I do think he's been unfairly
games since his last.
And he's been unfairly punished because of the turnovers. But I think now those same people, they would be inconsistent and they would be hypocrites if they didn't look at it and say, well, now he's he doesn't have the turnovers and we're going to vote for him. And I think that's why those people are actually willing to vote for him now, which I don't think it's great reasoning, but obviously it's working in his favor here. And of course, not having turnovers is great for him anyway, and we all know that. But I think that's the biggest difference.
Now, on offense, beyond Josh Allen, they're finally getting healthy again. Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, both practice in full. Assuming they're playing both this week, how much of an impact do you think they're going to actually have on their first game back, especially in a game as big as this one and facing a defense as banged up as Detroit's? I mean, we're talking like guys like Mac Hollins have stepped up. Khalil Shakir has been absolute dynamite. So guys have been – Amari Cooper had his breakout game with Buffalo. I feel like a lot of guys have been stepping in their absence. And, yeah, just looking to hear your thoughts on how much of an impact Kincaid and Coleman will bring back to this offense.
Well, listen, I just think that having them on the field can impact everyone around them so much and impact Josh Allen that is obviously it's going to be impactful. The Bills still scored 42 points without them last week. They've scored 30 points in 7 straight games, and neither of them have played the majority of those games, right? So they're doing fine. But man, when you can have a Dalton Kincaid who has to draw a little bit extra coverage, that opens up Khalil Shakir maybe. When you have Keon Coleman who can beat somebody one-on-one down the field, they have to pay a little more attention. That gives you one more option for Josh Allen. So, we'll see if they play this week. I think it's trending well. The fact that they both were full participants, will it translate? Will the impact translate into how many catches or yards or touchdowns? I don't know, but certainly having them on the field, to me, I always compare it to like a basketball team, right? Like you're a big Syracuse fan. I'm a big college basketball fan. And, when it's like if you didn't have a really good shooting guard, so you move Jerry McNamara to shooting guard, right? But he's a better point guard, right? And if you can move him back to his natural spot because of a shooting guard, then everybody fills in their roles better, and you're kind of elevating the role, so and everybody elevating everybody around you. So when you have Dalton Kincaid, who's able to be the tight end, now that helps out everybody around him because of just how the defense has to play you.
Awesome. A couple more questions before I let you go. So real quick, 3 things right from the get-go. What are your 3 biggest keys to success for the Bills facing off against Detroit?
I think number 1 is match the physicality because, listen, this is a really, really physical Detroit team. It's partly, I think, why they have, 18 guys on injured reserve. It's incredible. Like they have a lot of their players on injured reserve, and they're a very physical team, and that's part of it. They play very physical football, very that brand, that style, but that can be intimidating too, especially in their environment and their home. You're not going to see as much Bills Mafia this week because the prices are outrageous, and that city supports their team, and they're not going to be selling tickets, to a lot of Bills fans. So it's going to be a tough place to play, and I think that's number 1. Match their physicality. Because I think that if you can do that, you kind of take away what's been one of their hallmarks this year that they're relying on a lot. That's more of an intangible thing. But after last week and how the Bills lost up front, especially on the defensive side from the Rams offensive side, I think it's a big deal for them. Number two, I would say that the secondary needs to play better than they did, especially on the outside. And we'll see if Rasul Douglas plays or not. Again, you might not be Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, but man, Amon-Ra St. Brown is really great. Obviously, they have weapons all over the place. They can throw the ball to their guys out of the backfield. I said Matt Laporta, by the way. That was a baseball player. Sam Laporta is obviously who I meant to say earlier. But that would be number two, and then number three. I think the Bills have to get back to running the ball a little bit better. And I think that they're going to try to do that and be more balanced this game. We all love Josh getting 6 touchdowns and 3 touchdown passes. The ideal scenario, though, is that the Bills stay balanced, they run the ball well, and they can control the clock a little bit. Because, look, if you can control the clock against this team, you could keep that offense off the field. They are the number 1 offense in the league, points-wise, the Detroit Lions. These are the top 2 teams. They're the only 2 teams in the league that have scored 30 points a game or more. And they're number 1, I think, at 32-plus points a game. So if you can keep them off the field by controlling the clock and using the run game, I think that'd be a huge benefit.
Lastly, I like to ask this to all the guests that I have, especially other journalists, podcast hosts, media personalities. You kind of touched on it at first, right when we started. One piece of advice that you can give to a student or a young professional trying to break into this field or the media in general.
Yeah, the number 1 thing I always tell people is be as versatile as possible. Do everything. When I was growing up and getting into this, which was well before you even, you didn't have all these different platforms and all these different options. It was basically you were either radio or TV or newspaper. That's really what it was. And if you were radio, you were either play-by-play or studio. And if you were TV, you were an anchor, you were a reporter or play-by-play. Like everything was such a specific role. It's not the case anymore. One of the reasons why, you say media personality for me, and I like that because that's what I am. I'm not just a radio host, right? I mean, I have to do everything. And I'm talking even like shooting practice with my camera, right? Like I got to put video out. I got to be on social media. There was no such thing as social media when I was growing up. Heck, there was almost no internet when I was growing up. It was really in its infancy, the internet. That's how old I am. But, that's what my number 1 advice is to anybody who wants to get into this. But understand, you don't have to be great at everything, but you got to be willing and able to do it all. No one's going to hire you just because all I do is go and cover the team and talk about them and go on the radio. No. You have to write for a website. I hate having to write, but I got to do it. It's part of my job. I'd rather just turn on a mic and talk. That's what I do. I'm a talker, but I got to do it. They're not going to hire one person. If you just want to do one thing, sorry, we can hire this person to do 10 things because they're willing to do 10 things. So my number 1 advice is be versatile. Do as much as you can.
That's great advice. And Sal, thank you for taking the time for coming on. I kept you a couple minutes over what we talked about, so thank you for sticking around. And awesome. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for giving us some insight on the Bills. And
yeah, you got it. And go Orange, baby. Let's go. Holiday Bowl, Orange. Washington State. That's right. Let's go, baby.
Right. Thanks so much, Sal. Thanks for coming on.
You got it, man. Bye-bye.
Man, Sal Capaccio. He is a true professional. So shout out to him. I mean, you can hear him on WGR. You can see him on his podcast. You can check him out pretty much anywhere. So give him some love. As always, thank you for coming on. I have a couple more things before we go. I've got a quick episode for you guys today. So first, I, of course, want to talk about Underdog. Continuing to partner with them. So I'm super proud to be partnering with Underdog Fantasy, my favorite place to play fantasy games, everywhere from sports betting to their pick'em games to drafts. We're going to talk about their pick'ems today. It's easy to play. Just pick 2 to 10 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can 100 times your money by going 10 for 10. If that sounds like fun, download their app today and sign up using my code BIGYAC. That's BIGYAC to get your first deposit of up to $100 match. Can't wait to see your entries. And as always, thank you for checking me out on Underdog, checking out my pick 5s. They've been nothing short of fantastic for me. So nothing but great things to give to Underdog. Moving on to SeatGeek. You got to check out SeatGeek, my favorite place to book my tickets for events. SeatGeek is a unique way to shop for event tickets thanks to their rating system, which gives a grade on your seat based on location and the venue and asking price. Use code BIGYAC Podcast, that's BIGYAC PODCAST, for $20 off your first order on SeatGeek. A couple lines sticking out to me before you guys go. I have 3 games that I'm looking at that the lines don't seem right to me, so get your deals on them while you can over on FanDuel. Right now, it's Rams at 49ers. The 49ers are 3.5-point favorites. Now, we all just saw what the Rams can do when they're fully healthy. I absolutely love Rams plus 3.5, and I would almost gamble to take them outright. What they are outright right now is you can get, let's see, where did we go? Plus 130 odds. You can get plus money on them right now, so that's a no-brainer for me. Moving on to Steelers and Eagles. Philadelphia is a 5.5-point favorite, and right here, I also like the underdog again. I think that the Steelers are going to keep it close. I mean, their defense is legit. The Eagles have been kind of spotty this year. Yes, they have won, I think now 11 in a row, 10 in a row, 10 in a row right now. But hey, I mean, they're not a team anymore that's really blowing out every single team they come by, especially a staunch defense and an absolute Super Bowl contender in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love the Steelers plus 5.5 here. Lastly, I have Colts and Broncos. The Broncos are only a 3.5-point favorite against the Colts. The Colts have nothing to play for right now. Honestly, right now they're probably playing for draft position. Anthony Richardson is still trying to find his footing after being benched, so I love the Broncos here. Again, that's another AFC contender. This is a home game in Denver. Home field advantage, especially for Denver, is a real, true thing. They're playing a mile up. I mean, you see guys on the sidelines all the time getting oxygen, gassed, and we're talking about Anthony Richardson here. Gassed. I mean, if he stepped out for a play at regular altitude, I can only imagine what's going through his head. A mile and some change up. So I love the Broncos here. Bo Nix is on a warpath. He is closing the gap for Rookie of the Year behind Jaden Daniels. So I like that here. Other than that, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you guys once again for all the support. Everything, all the love that you guys have shown me, and then thank you again to Sal Capaccio for taking the time to come on. And once again, that's all I have for you guys. We will see you next week on the Big YAC Podcast. Thanks so much. Bye.